buckle up, because it's going to be a long ride. It's going to be a wild ride. Nobody cares, but we're going to tell you anyways. This is Popcorn Chats.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Popcorn Chats. I'm Katie.
And I'm Michae.
Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to our show. This time we're talking about Game of Thrones yet again. This is a final nostalgic rewatch recap of the entire series. We're going to be talking about things that we've kind of been biting our tongues on throughout this entire rewatch series. There's been a lot of episodes this summer covering this show. It's been a wild fucking ride in anticipation for House of the Dragon, but I'm so glad we did it because now I'm just so ready for this show. How are you?
I'm doing good. I don't know. I'm just having an identity crisis, as we do now and then. But, you know, it is what it fucking is. And I found this really cute tray at Target in the dollar section that has little...
that on your story.
Yeah, isn't that cute? For those who are just listening, it's like a black oval tray with black snakes as the handles, and it just looks really cool. And it's supposed to be Halloween-y, but I'm just using it year-round. Anyways, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm just a little sleepy today. I just worked a full day of work. I'm good though. I came into some luck yesterday because I have been really down bad in the shoe department. My shoes are literally falling apart and I'm a broke bitch. Can't really afford new shoes. Funds have to be delegated to certain things like food and soap. I needed new pants. So I was like, new pants or new shoes? I'm gonna go with pants. Got free shoes from Beyonce Knowles. They're Ivy Park times Adidas, and I posted them on my Insta story as a flex. How I came into the possession of these shoes, I'm not going to be able to disclose on the podcast because NDAs have been signed, but thank you, Beyonce. And I did post on my Instagram story, don't pray to God, pray to Beyonce.
What? I'm so confused. Yeah, anyone out there listening, I'm just as confused as you are.
I told you that.
No.
Oh.
I did not fucking know that. Well, good. I'm glad that then you scored some shoes. I saw your post, but I was just like, honestly, I was just like, Katie's probably just high. I like didn't think anything of it when you said pray to Beyonce. I was just like, okay.
She came through though. She really did. Queen bee. All right, bitches. Let's get into rounding out our beloved show, the series recap episode. How do we feel after rewatching this entire thing? How are you feeling about it?
Feeling really good. I loved this show before we rewatched it. It was one of my all-time favorite, like top 5 shows before the rewatch, and it's maintained that position for me. And if anything, like there were moments that I appreciated more. There were characters that I appreciated more. Overall, I'd say like it still stood up to me and also solidified that my thoughts after seeing how it ended the first time, that at least I wasn't wrong in that, but it almost made me angrier this second time around with how they chose to end it. So, what about you?
Yeah, I feel very similar. I think I really enjoyed this rewatch because I was able to pick up so much more than I was the first time watching it. We've said that a lot, like in these episodes. Also, it's been nice to like talk with you about it and like talk through it and like our feelings about certain things and getting your perspective on certain things because I have very strong opinions about like Jon Snow or, Dany's character and how they chose to end the show, whatever. I just feel very like enriched by the show and I am gonna miss watching it. But honestly, like my cousin Dan has loved this show like since the beginning and he rewatches it like once a year. And honestly, I don't know if I could do it once a year, but I can see myself like rewatching this a few more times in my lifetime because you'll pick up things. I imagine I'm gonna pick up things every time and it's such an inspiring story. I literally wrote an entire pitch for a continuation of this series last night because I was just like so enthralled with Game of Thrones.
Maybe on one of the rewatches we'll finally understand or have a full understanding of the Hodor hold the door moment.
Right? I don't, you know
Maybe
what?
that'll make sense third time around.
Maybe. Who fucking knows?
But some of the characters that I just wanted to highlight that overall, like that this second time around, I feel like for me personally, I really enjoyed more. And also I feel like, I don't want to speak for you, but in talking with you over the course of these episodes, you would agree that these are characters that we definitely didn't appreciate as much the first time around and that we enjoyed watching a lot more, which to start would be Jaime and Tyrion. I think the first time around, I lumped them in as being like Lannisters, bad. And obviously, like, I liked them both over the course of the series, but I would say that, like, when I finished watching it for the first time, I didn't really have any strong opinions about the two of them, where this time around, it's like, they're really, like, I just enjoyed their journeys a lot more and, like, paying closer attention to both of them.
With Cersei too, like after watching it the first time, I just had this kind of overarching view of her, but then going back on the rewatch and seeing how she begins compared to how she ends, it's so cool, like you said, to go through the entire journey with a full perspective of what they're gonna because then you can appreciate each like section of their journey. I am nostalgic for like Queen Mother Cersei, or like just when she was like Robert's wife. Like, I don't know, I like that era of her.
I'm nostalgic for Cersei pre-Sparrow. I think that's my favorite. I think once she got involved with the Sparrow and like season 5 to season 8 Cersei is not my favorite, but I really like early days. Some other characters that we appreciated more this time around, Bronn, like he was not even on my radar the first time I watched this. Like I wouldn't have even remembered his character whatsoever the first time watching this show, and this time around he was like one of my highlights in a lot of seasons. Same with Yara. We were really, really hard on Yara at her introduction again because of what she lets Theon do to her, which Yara, you are still not absolved of that crime, but loved her with such a passion the rest of this series. Like I really, really enjoyed watching her the second time around.
I felt like she was kind of snubbed the last season. Like what was really going on with her at the end, who knows? But like how did she react to Theon's death? That's what I want to fucking know. I feel like we kind of treated her like Paige from Pretty Little Liars the first time around, and that's just unjustified because Paige is a fucking flop.
Tormund just appreciated the comedic relief he brought to the show.
Yes. And just his heart too. Like he's a great character and a great actor.
He was. Yes.
Really talented
Loved him.
man.
The Hound appreciated him a lot more the second time around. Turned out to be like one of our faves on the rewatch.
I feel like I appreciated him the first time around, thinking back. Once he kind of joined the Lord of Light squad, I think I was appreciating him more. Obviously, I didn't like give two shits about him when he was working for Joffrey and stuff, but
Sir Davos, I think, is collectively our favorite character on the rewatch. Not like overall series, but I think you and I both. He went from being like a nobody to us to being like Daddy Davos, you know, on this rewatch.
Daddy Davos. I have not stopped thinking about him in preparation for this episode because he truly is like the standout of who I see so differently on this rewatch. I'm so grateful for this rewatch giving me Daddy Dobbs.
Sansa, not that I didn't appreciate her the first time. She was one of my favorite characters the first watch, but I think I was just surprised at how much I loved her even more. Like, I didn't think that it was possible to like that character more for me, but truly, like, she leaps and bounds on this rewatch. I just appreciated, like, every single moment that she had, and, like, she held my attention from the first scene to the last scene of hers. Yeah. Should we talk about kind of what we left out of season 8, the part 1 and part 2, which is Dany's arc and looking back on it as a whole?
What do you have to say?
Well, I was gonna ask you, because I feel like we're both passionate about this, but I think I'm like angrier the second time around with how it ended, but I do still think that I don't necessarily like hate, like loathe it like you do. I don't like it, but I don't think I hate it as much as you do.
Here's the thing, like I feel like I have talked a lot about it, just not only in the episodes for season 8, but also just like leading up to this moment. If you don't know my thoughts on this situation and the route that the writers chose to take with Dany's character in particular, then you haven't been listening very well to these rewatch episodes. But I will say, like, this rewatch has given me the opportunity to really watch this. Like, I mean, I watch everything kind of like with half a critical lens and half a creator's lens. I think what we were talking about last time is so true. Like, we understand. Like, it's not like they just pulled shit out of thin air. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, and I'm not saying the writing isn't good either. And I know a lot of people are like, they can't write for shit. That's just straight up not true.
It's not true.
And the show is still super well done. This rewatch has really solidified my opinion that, like, what I get hung up on is like why they wanted people to feel the way that they did. It's more of the why they chose to go that direction. I don't know. There were so many other ways they could take it, and I don't understand why they were like, yes, this is the route. This is the way. There's no other way.
I really think they did it for shock value. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that they based a whole decision on shock value, but I think there were so many theories floating around of like how it would end. And I do think part of them was like, we don't want to do anything that anyone's thought of. You know, like we don't want anyone to have predicted it. And like, who would have predicted it? You know, who would have said like that they're going to destroy probably the most loved character on this show.
And on television too at that time, like,
people named their kids after her. Like, Khaleesi was a trending name for a couple years, which is just wild.
That whole thing with like shock value, I feel like they did get a little bit too caught up in Twitter and just pop culture. It's like, no, this is going to be a show that goes beyond this moment in pop culture. It's going to outlive the hype surrounding it right now. Like, it will always be a thing. I don't understand. I mean, maybe it's because I'm not a famous writer or like a successful television writer and whatever, like, more power to them. I don't understand why you can't write something that people have guessed or like conclude your story in a way that people have guessed, because it's satisfying then. Like, if you fulfill expectations, it's satisfying and people are gonna like it. That's why I felt so much like there's this gotcha sense in the last season of like, oh, you shouldn't have been rooting for her. I think that's where that comes from, is like, we misdirected you and haha, we got you, and isn't your mind totally blown? It's like, no, I'm just sad. Like,
I'm straight up sad about this.
I'm just really disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And people aren't going to remember, oh wow, they really got me there. Like, I really wasn't expecting that. They're gonna remember, oh fuck, they destroyed my favorite character of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And now every time I go back and watch this show, I can't appreciate it the way I did the first time, because I know what she becomes. And this whole show is kind of centered around rooting for her.
I would say that's the other thing that I noticed on the rewatch for me, was that I didn't look at Dany the same way, obviously, on the rewatch. But I think the first time you're watching, you just are so tuned in with her and you're just rooting with her from literally day one, because at the start, she is the biggest underdog for the Iron Throne, who's like vying for it from the very beginning. And I liked my more critical lens of Dany the second time around, because you do see flaws in her that I didn't notice with her, like, decision making, with her underestimating other people, with her overestimating certain people. I like that we saw that, because I do think the first time around I was like, well, Dany's faultless and like she's great and whatever, she's going to get this because she's right. But I did like the second time around that I picked up on things way earlier than season 8, of things where I'm like, ooh, red flag. I think I liked that actually a little bit more the second time around, seeing a little bit more of like a darker side to her, because I just didn't have that view of her the first time around. But with that said, I think it also made me angrier seeing the ending, because it kind of is like what you were saying. You're supposed to root for her from the beginning, and they make it that way. She always gets triumphant music. She's always the one saving the day. She's always the one helping the innocent people. And who was watching this before season 8 and didn't like her? Like, if you didn't, you really didn't have much of a what would have your faces have been. Like, I would have liked to have heard that argument pre-season 8. I don't personally feel like jested by the writers for like flipping the script, but I do get how people feel that way and like see that, because they really do lead you one way and then kind of like just pull the rug out from under you. Even if you have seen it coming, even if you've seen someone like lining up to pull it, you don't think that it's going to happen until it's like, oh shit, it's happening. Yeah. How would you have preferred to see her character end?
I liked what we talked about a little bit in the last 2 episodes of like, I think actually you said it was you see that like flicker in her eye of wanting to burn it all down, and because there's no doubt in my mind that she would want to like burn it all and unleash this havoc on anything like standing in her way after everything she's lost. But I would love to see her pull back and, you know, have that moment where she's like breathing really heavy and about to do it, and she just ends up not. I feel like it's more in Dany's nature to be scared of that thought that she had in her head, and I also feel like she would maybe see Grey Worm and see how he's changed and be concerned for him too. I know that it's not really like in her nature or like things that we saw for her to be like, Jon, you should rule or anything like that. I want her to be queen, but I want her to be like, I need advisors to keep me in check. Like I almost burned innocent people alive. I don't know. Maybe that's not as like exciting. I agree with you that I think Jon and Dany both can't live out of season 8. I don't think they can both make it out. So potentially Jon dying in some heroic way. And I would also like to see Sansa and Dany come together so that Sansa or Dany respects Sansa and the North as like an independent kingdom. That was a really long-winded way of putting it, but I wish we could have gotten to see her be queen. Somehow comes to terms with like, oh, I'm flawed, and I just don't like that she ends on this mentality of I know what's best, and even if I don't, I get to choose and other people don't. I hate that that's like the last kind of phase of her evolution. I would have liked to see one more notch turn of her being like, oh wait, no, that's fucked up. Why didn't she get a chance to get through that process? Like, no, she's just crazy like the rest of the Targaryens. Then this was a fucking waste of time.
Yeah. I would have kept everything the same actually leading up to the Bells episode, and as I said in the previous episode, I would have liked to have seen that tick, her teetering on that edge. Yeah. And actually I would have liked, because I think Cersei should have died, and I'm glad that Dany actually burned her. So what I would have liked to have seen is Dany flies over after the surrender bell goes up, but burns down where Cersei is, and like that Cersei meets her end right then and there. And Dany lands, but then she makes a speech to the people of King's Landing of being like, you have been held under the thumb of an oppressive ruler for so long. I'm not here to do that, whatever. But then she like goes off from that speech after like surrender is down, and she just like breaks down. Like I want to see her full on crying, because crying is not a weakness, and I want to see her finally have her moment where everything hits her of like she's killed Cersei and she's kind of completed all of her stuff, but she doesn't have 2 of her children. She doesn't have Missandei. She doesn't have Ser Jorah. She doesn't even have a claim to the throne. And I would love to see that all hit her have that moment and kind of take a break. And then obviously we know that Tyrion betrayed her, and I would like for her and him to have a conversation and like really have like a deep heart to heart where she's like opened her mind to listening to him, and him telling her like everyone backed you, like Ser Jorah backed you, Missandei backed you because they believed in you, and like you were this freer breaker of chains, mother of dragons kind of figure, and that's not who you're being right now. And her really kind of like realize that. Again, like would that be the most dynamic thing on a TV show? No, but like I'm looking at this of what I would love to see, and I think that that would be really great. And I would love to see her just kind of like a breakdown of everything that an inner breakdown of herself, of everything that she's constructed over the past, like I would say like 3 seasons, and kind of like really really take a step back and look at who she's become, have like a little come to Jesus moment, then I don't know where it goes from there. Like you said, I'd love to see her as queen. I would maybe love to see if they even were like, if Drogon burns the throne, if she gets in there, touches it, and is like, this was all of this death, all of this pain, all of this loss for this fucking chair. And like, I'd love to see her have Drogon burn it, and that be like a symbol of a new beginning for the Seven Kingdoms. And maybe like at the like meeting, they get everyone together and they talk about how they want to move forward, and maybe like her and Jon lead together. You know, I know that that's unrealistic because they're aunt and uncle. I'm for it, okay?
I really like that, dude. I like the moment where she like when she breaks down is that moment when she like touches the throne. I love that moment when she finally is there and it's tangible and she can put her hand on it. And that's the moment where she's like, I have everything I've ever wanted, but like, I don't want it anymore. Like, the people that got me here aren't with me. Then she like has that come to Jesus moment. Drogon burns it. She gets on Drogon and just like, peace. And that's like open-ended. Like, where the fuck is she? They can't find her. And then they have to like figure out. That'd be even better than her dying. Like, I don't want her to die.
I just think like both of our ideal endings for her is her not dying. Like, even if she went mad, okay, fine. Just still don't have her die. Katie and I are unsatisfied with Bran being king at the end. Are we not?
Yes, we are. We are unsatisfied.
Okay, we're in that agreement. So, Katie, I would like to know, so everything else still plays out the same. Okay, so Dany is dead. Jon killed her. Like, so we're at this High Lords meeting and such. So if you had your ideal way, you're writing it, who would you have liked to see on the throne at the end?
Yeah, I don't know. When you sent me that question, I did put Dany, queen. Sansa, queen of the north. Jon, dead. Tyrion, hand.
I mean, that could be your answer.
Brienne shows Dany consequences of acting on impulse, and she puts him on her advisory board.
He would be a good advisor.
Right. Why is he the fucking king? And then Jaime and Brienne are heads of the King's Guard.
Ooh, so Jaime's alive.
Jaime is alive.
I'd like to keep him alive as well. Let Cersei die by herself.
He can mourn her.
Yeah, he can mourn her. That's fine. He can be like, Brienne, I'm not ready to commit to you at this time because I'm mourning the loss of my twin lover. And Brienne would probably be like, okay, cool. No problem. Work through your issues.
But you know they're going to get together again down the line.
But you know they're going to get together again. I would love to have seen Tyrion on the throne. I feel like he is the most logical choice in my mind. And Sir Davos as his hand. I feel like that duo together could just like, they would lead this 6 kingdoms plus Sansa in the north to prosperity and peace and happiness. I just feel like they are two of probably like the smartest and most empathetic people. I don't think that they would like steer people wrong.
I think Varys would also be kept alive in my alternate ending. He would also be on that advisory committee.
Love to see that. So we have our favorite characters. So originally I was like, let's do top 5. Bitch, that's not possible on this show. Honestly, we could have done top 15 because there were still so many people that I like cut, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I hate to cut you out, but like we had to. So we have our top 10 characters. We're going to rapid fire the bottom 7 for time purposes. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about the top 3, but I feel like probably for both of us, we've probably already talked about our top 3 characters quite a bit.
Yes. Yeah. Why don't you start with your number 10?
I'm so sorry, Sir Davos. I love you, but I did put you at number 10, but I do love you.
Sir Davos was also my number 10. He made the list.
Us.
Like,
also,
he wouldn't have made it the first time around, but here he is.
Also, I feel like I should, well, at least for my list, I should just preface, these are personal favorites. These are not going to be the people that I was like, oh, the show would not be the same without them, like that kind of shit. It was my personal favorites, okay? Is that yours?
Who you like to watch on screen?
My number 9 was Grey Worm.
My number 9 was Missandei.
Number 8 for me was Ser Jorah.
Number 8 for me is the Hound.
He and Missandei like just missed my cut. Love you, the Hound. Number 7 was Jon.
Number 7.
He's not on your list.
No. Number 7 for me is Cersei because without her, there's not much conflict.
Number 6 is Marjorie. May you rest in peace, Queen.
Oh, bitch, rest in peace. My number 6 is actually Dany. That's how far down she is due to her ending, unfortunately.
Yikes. Number 5, Brienne of motherfucking Tarth, a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
My number 5 is Miss Sansa.
Lilas. My number 4 is Dany. That's how much she dropped.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, not much, but like I think first time around she was like top 3 for me. This time
Right.
you just dropped to number 4.
Yeah, that's not too bad. My number 4 is Tyrion.
Tyrion's my number 3. He was a standout star for me in so many of the earlier seasons, and still in the later seasons. There wasn't really much about his character that I didn't enjoy. I felt like he had a lot of depth, a lot of humor, a lot of heartfelt moments. I like empathized with him. I really loved Tyrion. There wasn't anything really about his character that I ever felt didn't feel like true to him. I love Tyrion. So he was my number 3.
My number 3 is Queen Marjorie. She's really up far for me because I did enjoy watching her character probably the most out of like anyone. Gone too soon.
Gone too far.
Another like mistake of the show was getting rid of her when they did. I think that it would have been interesting to see her kind of play out till later on and like see how her and Dany interacted or see how her and Sansa like came back together. I think that would have been really cool to see Sansa post Ramsay, how her and Marjorie would have interacted. And maybe Marjorie like loses her family, so then they've both gone through like a lot of shit.
R.I.P. Even, you know what would have been good is if she was alive in King's Landing, and when Dany sees her and Sansa reunite, that would have pissed Dany off, especially to see like Sansa actually friends with like one of the rulers in King's Landing.
Right, yeah.
That would have been interesting. My number 2 was Arya. I fucking love Arya. Obviously, I named my cat after her. I just think from the very beginning to the very end of the show, I enjoyed her character. I loved her like adventures, even though she was off by herself for a lot of the show or like with random people throughout it. It was always just like fun whenever she popped up on my screen. And I think we've talked about how much we love the women on the show, and I love seeing a highborn woman reject everything that she is supposed to be and only listen to her like true intuition about herself and like pursue that wholeheartedly. And obviously that pays off in the end. Like she is who she's supposed to be. Despite what she is actually supposed to be. And she has so many badass moments. I can't.
Yeah.
I love you, Arya.
My number 2 is Brienne, and I think in the same vein, it's like she's such a great role model. She's definitely somebody that I look up to, and as far as morals go, there aren't very many like morally intact people in this show, but I feel like Brienne is one of the few who is just like a good person no matter what. And I like that she's complex. I like that she gets this love story with her and Jaime, and how she is very vulnerable from the jump and also very strong. You know, she has this love for Renly and then this like need to prove herself. You know, she's complex. Like she's not just disregarded as this like strong brute force woman who is trying to be a knight. She is a woman who is living this kind of alternative lifestyle for the society that we're in. And I really admire that in women in particular, just because it's so inspiring to see people stay true to themselves no matter what, because it is fucking hard to like know who you are and be like, no, I'm not gonna change or do anything differently just because society tells me to. And I think Brienne and Arya are very like exemplary of that, and I admire that a lot, because I would say now I'm living authentically, but I didn't always have the courage to do so. And to see characters like Brienne and Arya on screen, it's makes me happy inside.
I love that. Lilas Brienne. And my number 1 character, which this was hard, and I do think that like this could change at any time with honestly probably like 5 people on this list, but I did put Sansa at number 1. I think I was so like into her at the beginning. If you listen back, I'm assuming this is correct, I remember, right? We were talking about like how much of a brat she is in like the first season and how kind of like unlikable she is, and just seeing where she goes from season 1 to then like season 2, you're seeing her just like constantly be attacked by these people, and she really is like this poor little puppy in a field of like wolves. I think her late game character arc, starting around like season 4, season 5, into like who she becomes at the end of the show, her Queen of the North moment, like everything about her character and like how she took pieces from every single person that she interacted with to build her own identity, to build her own tactics when talking with people, negotiating, manipulating. She's just so incredibly smart. She was, I'd say, underrated by everyone that she met from the very beginning. All she was like, I just want to be a princess and marry a prince and live happily ever after and be queen. And by the end, she had completely squashed all of those childhood notions, but she became queen on her own rather than like marrying a man for it. I love that. I truly loved every single thing about Sansa's character arc. And I love Sophie Turner playing her. I think she did amazing.
Dude, I was thinking the exact same thing. Sophie Turner is a perfect cast.
And how hard to get that right, because you're casting, she was 15 when she started the show. So it's like you're casting a teenager and they're supposed to be one of your like biggest characters. How do you know that they're going to like still be good 3 years from now? You know, that they're still going to like be committed.
I think about that with Maisie Williams too. Like they really lucked out with both of those girls. Brienne's actor, no offense. I mean, obviously he's like way more successful than I'll ever be. So like kudos. But I think as like a kid actor, he's a little bit more dynamic. Also, it's the character that he had to play. But Sophie Turner and Maisie Williams were able to like evolve with their characters and really bring them to life. I mean, they're everybody's favorite characters in this show. So there's something to be said about that.
The Stark sisters. And I think is your number one also a Stark sister?
Yeah, she is a Stark sister. Miss Arya. She's my number one. And again, I think I share the same sentiment as you do. Like, this could change given the episode that I'm watching, whatever. But if I'm thinking about who I'm consistently rooting for from start to finish, like you said, Sansa at the beginning isn't necessarily my favorite. Like, she is a little bit prissy or whatever. Jon, we know my feelings about him. Tyrion, at first, we hate him. Well, not hate, but we don't necessarily like him. You go through like waves of emotions with all the characters, except for Arya. I felt like I'm always rooting for her. I'm always relating to her. I just feel her, and I just always want her to come out on top. And I think she has one of the most satisfying journeys of everyone.
Okay, let's jump to favorite season. My favorite season, this was hard going back through, and I did have to kind of like look at the little HBO Max that like menu to just like flip through and make sure that I was correct. But I think season 6 is my favorite season because we have Arya when she's training with the Faceless Men. I liked that storyline a lot, and then that's when she like is blinded and she's fighting with the waif. Like I enjoyed Arya's storyline. Season 6 is also when Sansa and Theon escape from Ramsay, and Brienne pledges herself to Sansa. Sansa and Jon are reunited. Tyrion's trying to run the place for Dany while Dany's with the Dothraki temple, and then she burns that temple. Battle of the Bastards episode. Melisandre resuscitates Jon at the beginning of the season because he's dead at the beginning of the season. And the Sept of Baelor and Tommen's death is at the end of the season. So I just think like through and through it's a powerhouse season. I love that we get Sansa and Jon's reuniting because reunion, are you illiterate? Reunion, because I think that's one of my favorite reunions. And it has my favorite one of my favorite episodes of the show. So season 6, I think hands down is my favorite.
I'm not surprised
What's
that
yours?
Was your favorite. My favorite season was season 7. After lots of deliberation, I came to the conclusion that season 7 was my favorite. That might be recency bias because I did just watch it, but I feel like as a Pisces, it's very fulfilling to watch that season for me because everybody's coming together, everyone's reuniting, and that's the season when Sansa and Arya dupe out Peter fucking B in that sister Legolas moment. Dany's still good, and I do appreciate the Dany and Jon relationship minus the incest. Like up until that point, I do really like fuck with them getting together. I feel like it makes sense. I feel like their chemistry is super good and one of my favorite relationships on the show now. Like I just really appreciate it. And yeah, it's just super satisfying and incredibly emotional, which a lot of this show is, but I think it's a season where a lot of payoff is happening.
And also you have the dragon being killed and then being turned into a White Walker dragon, which is just like, oh, I think that's one of the like coolest moments. Top 3 episodes. I don't have these in any order. It's just the 3 that I wrote down. Battle of the Bastards, we all know that episode is my shit. So season 6, episode 9. The Long Night, season 8, episode 3. And this one was tricky, and I'm like, is it recency bias or is it I truly like, again, this episode is 10 out of 10. Like I love love this episode. So it did end up being my top 3. It might be recency bias. I don't know. But A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is season 8, episode 2, the episode before The Long Night. Those I would put as my top 3.
Interesting. My top 3 is Hard Home, when the Night King raises everyone from the dead. I feel like that is such a well done episode, which is so weird for me to say because I hate like the North.
That's like a John episode.
I know it's a John episode and it's like a very North episode, but I don't know. This rewatch, I really, really fucking liked it. I don't remember the title of this episode, but the one where Marjorie dies, obviously RIP, but like the wildfire episode, I just think the direction of that and the music, it really stands out to me when I think of Game of Thrones. I think of that episode for some reason, just because it's such like a jaw-dropping episode. Just from the moment when Cersei is just like staring out the window and the Sept of Baelor like blows up to Tommen jumping out the window. It's such a memorable episode.
Season 6, episode 10.
Yes. And then The Long Night.
Top 5 moments. Okay. I didn't put these in any particular order, and we'll jump back and forth on them again. But if I was putting these in order, this would definitely be towards the top, and it is when Brienne gets knighted in season 8, episode 2. We talked about it in part 1, so I don't really need to elaborate anymore, but there is just truly no one that deserves being a knight more than Brienne, and it's just such a beautiful moment between her and Jaime, and then seeing Podrick, Tyrion, Tormund, Sir Davos, like all reacting, and just knowing that like in all of the chaos and like wrongdoings of people that they've seen and stuff, that this truly is just like a perfect moment for everyone.
One of my favorite moments is the Red Wedding. I know it's a difficult episode to get through, but again, it's just like one of those moments where like those iconic lines, the Lannisters send their regards, and like these major deaths, and it just comes out of nowhere. Such a memorable moment.
Another one that I had is when Dany gets the Unsullied and burns the Master who she worked with. That's season 3, episode 4. It just a super pivotal moment for Dany. It does so much for her character, and it's just such like a powerful moment, and one of those moments that you look back on, and that's one where it's like, oh, I really like loved that Dany right then and there in that moment.
Yeah, I had that moment too, when she frees the Unsullied and they choose to go with her.
Another one, I feel like this one, I don't know, it did make the list because it is so iconic, but also I was like, because it's so iconic, I feel like then I should include like a lesser iconic one, but just Arya killing the Night King in season 8, episode 3. I mean, like it was 8 seasons in the making for the show itself with the Night King, but also 8 seasons in the making of Arya's training and her being an assassin, and it's just like, oh, it's the coolest moment.
It is the coolest moment. It's my favorite moment of the entire show. The first time I saw it, I rewatched it like 8 times because it's just so good.
The Sept of Baelor explosion, I think because it was so shocking and that it took out so many people at once. Like we had the Tyrells pretty much swooped out, minus Lady Olenna, and then Tommen dying too, and seeing like Cersei drinking her wine while she watches it explode, and seeing the end of the Sparrows and their fucking era, and like you said with the music and everything, it's just like a beautifully done scene.
Another small moment that gives me chills every time is Sansa and Tyrion in the crypt during the Long Night episode, and when Sansa pulls out her dagger, and that's when the music starts. One of my favorite moments of that episode and the show as a whole.
I just got chills when he said that, because again, that scene's like so good. And then my last favorite moment is the Red Wedding in season 3, episode 9. It's one of the most iconic moments on the show, like one of the most iconic episodes, but truly in that moment, we already knew that no one was safe with Ned got beheaded in season 1, but to see like all the leaders of House Stark taken out in one foul swoop, and then like the next in line basically is Sansa, who we're seeing is like still a child, but there's like no one to really head up House Stark, and seeing his wife, what's her, Talisa? Is that her name? Seeing Rob's wife get stabbed in the stomach, and then him shot with a bunch of arrows, and Catelyn pleading for his life before her throat is slit. It's just an absolutely wild moment, and just really good.
Brienne of Tarth saving Sansa after she escapes from Ramsay. I just think that's such a full circle moment, and I'm so happy for Sansa and Brienne for finally like fulfilling her journey that it's kind of like a mini arc for her, an arrival of sorts.
I feel like honorable mention, because like Arya killing the Night King is great, but also Arya killing the Freys, taking out a whole ass
Yes.
house. That was great. Honorable mention for that. And for her and Sansa taking out Peter B together.
Yep.
You already talked about that in your favorite season, but honorable mention to that fucking episode.
So good.
And then Brienne too being like, not so fast.
Yeah, not so fast. Peter B.
So here's the thing. When I was going through, I was like, I literally can't pick just one. So I made 3 little categories real fast. So I will brush over them. I will go through them quickly. But I had like Ser Jorah is my most meaningful death to me. That made me sob. I absolutely loved how that completed his character arc. I loved seeing him die defending his queen, which he set out from day one. We know I'm a Ser Jorah stan.
Yeah, I figured that
here,
was gonna be your fave death.
So he has meaningful death. Then I had satisfying death, which is seeing Ramsay get eaten by his own fucking hounds while Sansa watches on. Just never felt that kind of satisfaction seeing someone die. And then shock value deaths, because there are a lot of shocking. It was Robb, his wife, and Catelyn.
Yeah.
Definitely the most shocking deaths to me in the show.
I'm living for these categories. Dang.
Thank you.
My favorite death, I kind of just did all-time favorite death, was the Hound. I think we talked about this a lot in the last episode, but it's just such a full circle moment, and I think it's super well done how he has to face his fear to like complete his arc. He's such like a simple character and an understated character, but it's like all tied up in a nice, neat little bow. I don't think it could have been a better death unless he was like protecting Arya.
Yes. So obviously we did this whole rewatch in preparation for House of the Dragon, but besides House of the Dragon, where we're getting like Targaryen prequel type vibes, are there any other spin-offs you would like to see?
Yeah.
Or you can make your own pitch.
Yeah. If there are any producers listening, and if they would like to hear my pitch for a continuation of this series, a 10 years later continuation, let me know. Because as a viewer, I think that is something that I would very much like to see. I would like to see 10 years in the future, and as long as they can get Sophie Turner, Maisie Williams, and Kit Harington back, I would be happy. And then in my version, there's like some other people that I think would be very important, but I'm not going to say it on here because patent pending, motherfuckers.
Yeah, you got to get the squad back. If you can't get those main players back
Then
and you got to recast, don't do it.
I don't want it.
No. That's why Everybody Loves Raymond has said that they'll never do a reboot, because the people who played Frank and Maria are both gone, and they're like, we can't reboot the show without them.
Yeah, they're the entire show. But yeah, I think my favorite, or like my top thing that I would want to see is like a 10 years later continuation, because I do feel like they left a lot of stuff open-ended. Excuse me. Another spin-off I would like to see is something about like the First Men. They talk about the First Men a lot, like the creation of the White Walkers and all this stuff. So I think that might be kind of interesting. Maybe they'd have to make it interesting. I don't know if it would be. I think it'd be cool to see Robert and Ned like taking the Iron Throne. I'm not sure if we're gonna see that in House of the Dragon. I don't really know how far back we're going in House of the Dragon times. Those are my spin-off ideas. I know they're making like a Jon Snow spin-off.
Yeah, I heard about that. So, like, cool, but also out of everything, really? Okay, choices were made. I agree. I would love to see Ned and Robb taking the throne, but then also, like, even go a little bit earlier to when, like, Cersei is married off to him and how that affects, like, Jaime and her. I'd love to see Jaime killing the Mad King.
Yes.
Because, like, when he told Brienne in that hot tub room about, like, how much it, like, hurt him to do so and stuff, I'd love to see that and, like, really see that from his point of view. Love to see Tyrion with his first love.
Yes.
And seeing that get snatched away. And then you could have Catelyn finding out when Jon Snow comes around and how that, like, affects her and Ned. Like, I do think, like, a little bit of a prequel with all of them would be interesting. But looking at, like, in the future, I'd love to see a mini series of, like, Arya's adventures of what's west of Westeros. I don't know, like, how much of, like, leg room that would have on it, but I think that would be really cool to see, and just any extra time that we follow her, I'd love to see a whole little, like, Sansa in the North, what the North is up to, especially being separate from the Seven Kingdoms, or, like, the Six Kingdoms, how that affects their, like, supply, their way of life. Like, now that the wildlings kind of have, like, an open door, like, I could see that connecting him with Jon and the wildlings and like how that would all play out as them all kind of living as like one. And then I would love to see, this would just be like a special episode, just like one, of Brienne going around and training other women to be knights. And like now that she is a knight, I'd love to see her have like Brienne's Women Knight Academy.
Yes.
That she has.
Brienne's Knight Academy for Women.
Yes. I would love to see that.
That's amazing. Pitch it.
Pitch it, bitch. I did like that committee at the end. I think Bran is just such an eyesore, or not an eyesore, that sounds mean. Bran's just a fucking sore on the show, okay? Like, we just don't fuck with him. But his little committee at the end of, like, Sir Davos, Tyrion, Bronn, Brienne's on that. Like, I do think that, like, seeing a little, like, office type show of them would be funny.
Yes.
But, like, would that ever happen? No. But
just
I do
like
think that would be
Bronn
funny.
says something inappropriate and Brienne looks at the camera like, God damn it.
Yeah, like I think that would be funny. I think it would be some good comedic times. I'd love to see Tormund being like an emissary for the wildlings coming to visit and again trying to just fuck Brienne.
I do feel like that
So many
committee is such like a satisfying ending. It's just the Bran of it all that I don't really vibe with. Bran just should have been on. He just should have been on the committee. Anyways, are we done?
We're done.
We're done with Game of Thrones until House of the Dragon next time.
But we're done with Game of Thrones as we know it,
Yes.
which is sad.
Ugh, it is sad, and we'll always have it. It's a moment in time forever. Thank you guys for coming on this rewatch journey with us. Let us know what other shows you would like us to do this with. We are going to be doing it with Pretty Little Liars. We're going to be traveling back to our youth. Honestly, the worst time to be a human being, like when you're 13 or 14. We're traveling back to those days. I can't fucking wait.
I think this is going to be good timing, dude, because have you been seeing all the buzz about the new show, like the Pretty Little Liars?
I kind of want to watch.
Me too. I think we're hitting this at like a good time because people are like saying that show is actually like genuinely good and really liking it. So I think we're going to be doing this rewatch at like a good time, hopefully.
Well, then maybe we can do an episode for the new stuff too. We're trying to be on the trends.
Yeah, we will be back with House of the Dragon, the first 2 episodes next week with our coverage.
Lilas.
Lilas.